Time now for the Alan Watts Lecture Series, once again here on WFMU, brought to you every Thursday at 6 o'clock p.m. Tonight, drug abuse. And it's a 50-minute lecture. You can check out our website at wfmu.org for the listing of upcoming shows on this lecture series. Also, alanwatts.com. Stay tuned. Drug abuse up next.
Well, as I was saying, what I had in mind was to talk to you about an overall view of the drug abuse problem. And you may wonder why I, as a philosopher, am in any position to talk to you about this at all. Well, I became interested in it back in 1958 because my field of study is the psychology of religion, and therefore of the different modalities of human consciousness. And I heard from various people working at UCLA on mescaline and LSD that these drugs appeared to produce states of consciousness very similar to what we call mystical experience or cosmic consciousness. And they asked me if I would be a guinea pig and come in and experiment with particularly LSD, also mescaline, and find out what happened and try also to give them as accurate a description of the effects of these chemicals as I could, which I proceeded to do. I have a certain kind of gift, which they call the gift of the gab. Mm-hmm. And I love the challenge of describing what is supposed to be indescribable. They tried out dimethyltryptamine on me, which is supposed to disintegrate you completely, but I made a bet with the doctors that I would remain coherent. And did. It was difficult. But that's how I got interested. And so then I began to explore the sociology of drugs. And the first thing I think we must be clear about is that the word drugs is very misleading. Because we have a harmless social institution called a drugstore. It sits on the corner of every city street. And nobody feels that the drugstore is a menace. Then we use the word drug in the word drugged when a person is out, dopey, vague, confused. And among those drugs or chemicals which do alter consciousness, there are vastly different substances with vastly different effects, ranging from caffeine, aspirin, alcohol, marijuana, LSD, mescaline, DMT, psilocybin, heroin, opium, so on. And we should treat each one of them separately instead of lumping them all together because they're quite different. Now, to put the cat among the pigeons, and you may know this already, and I may be telling no news, but I want to make a provocative statement. The laws of the United States and the programs government-sponsored concerning the use of addictive drugs are a total failure. Not only a total failure, but they're making the problem worse. They are so stupid that anyone supporting those laws must be either a moron or involved in the racket. It's that bad. First of all, we all know that government agencies are self-serving institutions. Let's face it. A person in a government agency wants to keep a job. So we'll consider the Bureau of Narcotics. It is in the interest of that bureau that there be a drug problem, because if there weren't, the Bureau would have no reason for existence. And this is true of police matters on a much broader scale, because the drug problem is a subdivision of what we will call sumptuary laws. The sumptuary law is a confusion of church and state. It is a law against sin as distinct from crime. In my definition, although these definitions can always be disputed on, as it were, on the edges, a crime is an offense against society in which somebody is injured and is disposed to complain. A person who is robbed, assaulted, simply doesn't want that to happen. But there are innumerable sins, you might call them, but that's an ecclesiastical term, or we might say crimes without victims, such as gambling, prostitution, drug taking, and various forms of sexual relationship. And when you try to regulate these things by law, you invariably enter into a super-colossal mess. Not only is it that government agencies against these things, we'll say narcotics squads, vice squads, so on, have a vested interest in their continuance, but also by prohibiting them, you put up the price of engaging in them. Take heroin. The price of heroin, and bad heroin at that, is colossal. It needs $25 a day to maintain the habit. Therefore, this is one of the most thriving industries in the United States. I have been told that dollar-wise, heroin is the biggest import of the United States. I don't know if this is true. But somebody is doing very well indeed out of it. The perfect sell. Get the person hooked, and in order to maintain their habit, they have to become a pusher. Sell it, or else a robber. And street crime, mugging, is directly related to the necessity of maintaining the heroin habit. Now, once you make this a matter for police control, you corrupt the police. The police in the United States began to be corrupted at the time of Prohibition. And Mr. Anslinger, who had a job under Prohibition, had to find himself another job. So he selected drugs as the new prohibition, and did very well. He persuaded, by the force of the United States, its prestige, almost all other countries to cooperate in his program, and therefore set up by response, by bounce, the biggest international racket going. One wonders sometimes if Mr. Anslinger didn't profit from him. We can only say that he profited by holding this eminent position. But somebody is making fortunes out of the trade, simply because the price is high, and the price is high because it's forbidden. Any idiot should be able to see that. In the meantime, the police are neglecting their other duties. If you have a robbery, say, in your home, they couldn't be less interested in retrieving the stolen goods. I know a case that happened fairly recently where police inspectors didn't come around for 2 days after the robbery. And then they sent over a couple of goons in plain clothes. Real goons. And, they sort of shuffled around and looked at things and went off. They don't give a damn. Because they've got too much to do. And they're underpaid.